Kathleen Kennedy, the longtime president of Lucasfilm, is expected to step down at the end of 2025, intends to retire after her current contract ends, according to a source with knowledge of her plans. No idea who that is.
They never name them.
A separate source, also close to Kennedy, dismissed the initial report from Puck as pure speculation and said that nothing has been decided. So maybe she's just in the middle of negotiations and they're begging her to stay. I can't imagine why, since clearly popular demand is that she leave.
I thought about this beforehand, so we can go back and forth about that all day long. I just wanted to look at what would be considered the successes and what would be considered the failures. So if we were talking about successes at Lucasfilm, now I'm just talking movies and TV here. I'm not going into other forms of media, video games, any of that stuff. But I would list Rogue One, Andor, The Force Awakens, and The Mandalorian. Now, the problem with that is that Andor is a success in spite of the fact that the ratings weren't that great and the budget was massive for both seasons. But the fact of the matter was it was highly regarded by both fans and critics as a very good show. The Force Awakens is actually both a positive and a negative because despite the fact that it made like a gazillion dollars, it made $2 billion at the box office, that movie is used as the benchmark to show just how bad the movies fell from that point forward. When you go down the line, then you get to The Rise of Skywalker, which only makes half of the $2 billion. Now, it still makes $1 billion, but from one movie to the third movie, it loses $1 billion of punch at the box office. And then The Mandalorian is their other example of success, but I think most people would attribute that to Jon Favreau and the implementation of Grogu or Baby Yoda as a marketing tool.
I'm sure that's made them a lot of money. And I even said, like, this Mandalorian and Grogu movie that they're going to put out in 2026 almost certainly is going to be a huge success regardless of what happens because people are just going to take their kids to see it.
So let's go through a couple of the failures then, shall we? Again, we're not going to get into huge details. So you do have The Rise of Skywalker, which loses half the revenue that the original Force Awakens box office made. You have The Last Jedi, which became like the most divisive movie in the history of movies ever. Like started whole movements and
it's wild because I know I've actually watched like almost all of these and I have no recollection of feeling anything about them.
Solo, a Star Wars story, proved the critics wrong, lost money at the box office. For the first time in history, a Star Wars movie managed to lose money at the box office. Book of Boba Fett, nobody cared. Dial of Destiny, which is Lucasfilm but not Star Wars, is universally panned and hated by just about all fans of the franchise. Obi-Wan, nobody cared. I forgot The Acolyte until right before we went live. I just wrote down The Acolyte, lol. Like, completely forgot about that. As for The Mandalorian movie, I do believe that there will be a success, but it's going to be interesting to see how audience translates from watching something on Disney Plus to having to go to the theaters for it. And then we have the Daisy Ridley New Jedi Order thing that's just been terminally in production and will come out around the time she hits menopause.
Right, that's what I said, but I was like, oh, that's a little too harsh.
Darth Menopause, that will be her bad guy.
They're looking ahead to the Rey Skywalker movie and pushed the release date, or not even the release date, the date to begin filming even further into the future because they've already lost a couple of writers so far. Now they have George Nolfi hired to script the movie, and they're planning to begin filming in 2026. Like on December 31st, 2026.
Here's the thing, though.
And they're making changes to the plot right now. He also was quoted talking about what his vision is for the script, saying there's just this nonsensical word salad that makes no sense. No sense. The way I approach it is you look at what's come before you, the broad ideas of what they want to do, meaning Lucasfilm, Disney, Charmin. Still, we have Charmin Obaid Chinoy attached to the Rey movie to direct, and that's the first actual movie that she will ever have directed at that point of her life, the director. And then you do what a writer does and try to put beats of a story together, try and imagine characters And then you present that with an understanding that it needs to honor, obviously, a long, incredible tradition.
Yeah.
What kind of answer is that?
It doesn't matter because it's those types of interviews are designed to just vomit word salad. Nothing means anything. Let's just go. But like, here's the thing, guys. What's going on right now in the government is really, really funny. And it sounds like I'm making a non sequitur, but I'm not. Where Elon Musk sends out an email. He says, you need to respond to this email that says, like, list what you do in a week.
Yeah.
And everybody gets mad. Well, the reason people get mad is because either they're politically or ideologically opposed to him, or they just aren't doing anything. But here's the thing. There are two places in the world where you can fail upwards. The government and Disney. Because with Lucasfilm, how many people can release that many bad projects and keep their job? Like how many people get to the head of a department and then release that much stuff that does not make money or at the very least, like we're not even talking about making money. I don't even know how you judge making money when all of these are Disney Plus things other than the main trilogy and then Solo and Rogue One. Right?
Sometimes it's just by sheer force of will or personality. And based on what Gina Carano has said about how Kathleen Kennedy operates behind the scenes and the type of forceful personality she has, for lack of a better word, it's not that hard to believe that she just kind of intimidates people into submission and
I think
hasn't been checked yet.
She's got some crazy pictures of Bob Iger somewhere.
I mean, she's got to have
some crazy pictures of George Lucas
the
somewhere.
Bob Iger freak off party blackmail material on a hard drive somewhere.
Him and Diddy and Jay-Z
it's cryogenically frozen underneath the Disney parks.
Maybe she took Walt Disney's frozen head and is keeping it in storage somewhere until she decides she wants to leave. She's like, you can have...
It's next to her pizza rolls.
You can have Walt's head back once I'm done. Look, all of this can be taken back to the fact that, as we know, they tried to make Disney Star Wars a very, very political thing from the offset. Everyone knows about the Force is female. And Chris Gore and many other very, very smart people have talked about how stupid it is to take boy brands and try to turn them into girl brands. It doesn't work. Funnily enough, I would say it's even worse, not just making boy brands into girl brands, but making classic entertainment for Gen X and or not even millennials, for Gen X,
mostly
older
Gen X.
millennials, Gen X, and boomers, and trying to make it for Gen Z.
The millennials who care about Star Wars grew up with the prequels. None of Gen Z
or their family watched the original trilogy and stuff like that. You know, Disney had a very, very smart plan when they bought Marvel and when they bought Star Wars, because the idea was, look, I mean, Rachel Zegler aside, we're going to be talking about that in a bit. They were making really, really good money with fairy tales and stories that are traditionally things that you show to young girls.
Yeah.
And that was a great market share for them. They did that for years and years and years through animated films. They had the parks, and then they buy up Star Wars and they buy up Marvel, which allows them to expand the parks and hit a demographic that they weren't really marketing for before, which was young men and boys. Now they took both of those brands and they tried to Frankenstein them into something they weren't and make them brands that women would want, not understanding that women don't care about Star Wars and women don't care about Marvel. And don't give me the I'm a woman and I know this. You have to you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
En masse, women don't care about superheroes. Like I said, I'm dragging my fiance to Captain America.
You know
kicking
better
and
than
screaming
anybody.
Tonight. They don't care, okay? And they don't really care en masse about Star Wars. So that's the way it is. Why not corner all markets and succeed? Why do some weird brand shift with Star Wars that wasn't necessary? Sure, I guess it's because Kathleen Kennedy is a feminist, and it's because Kathleen Kennedy, puts her ideology ahead of the product. Or you could just be bad at your job. Like if you greenlit The Acolyte and you release it and what you see is something that you think is actually going to bring about good press from the audience, then you're just bad at your job, because nobody watching that would ever believe that, because it was so boring. Nobody watches something that boring purely on entertainment's sake. We're not even talking about politics or Amanda Stenberg's comments. Purely on the fact that you could fall asleep in the first 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. It's not good. It's not for the masses. But I don't think that this ends here. I don't think she's going to end up leaving this year.
We have a 20 from Hotshot Red. Let's start a blackmail business. I want to make my version of the Flash.
Well, then you'd have to get stuff on, I guess, you'd have to get stuff on David Zaslav and James Gunn.
Was Zaslav at the Freak-Offs?
Let's be fair. There's probably stuff on James Gunn out there that you could get.
Oh, well, I mean, his screenshots are already out there. We have another 20 from Pop Culture Junkie. The construction of Kathleen Kennedy's contract was such that it was virtually impossible to fire her.
Yeah.
There has always been a question whether this was built into the departure of Lucas and the sale of the IP.
Yep.
That it was perhaps a handshake made between George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
I mean,
That's kind of
he
wild.
anointed her in a way. Wait, did they make E.T.? Like, what if she just ruins E.T. on the way out? It's just
you're right.
A big double middle finger to everyone. She gives you CGI slop. I think E.T. was Amblin Entertainment.
Yeah, that wasn't Lucas.
But I think George Lucas produced. Did he produce that? I might be misremembering that. It would be really funny if she just got her hands on E.T. and she, like, on her way out, she buys E.T. and Back to the Future and ruins both of them. No. Gender swaps everyone in Back to the Future and does E.T. CGI.
Well, since you mentioned this,
no, I'm sorry. It was Steven. Yes, no, it was Steven Spielberg that
directed
E.T.
it. But I don't know if any. Are you saying Lucas produced it?
I don't know. I feel like I heard that somewhere, but I might be misremembering. Okay. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's still funnier to think about her. She just goes out and buys some more beloved properties and ruins them as she retires.
Just for the fun of it. You said she's a billionaire, right?
I think that it's like I'd look
or at least close.
She's made a lot of money in her day.
She could not work for the rest of her life if she wanted to. But since you mentioned this trend of failing upwards and just how puzzling it is that you can keep your job failure after failure, we'd be remiss not to mention Marvel here and Kevin Feige. The creator of Deadpool, Rob Liefeld, has been blasting tweets out nonstop, calling for Kevin Feige to either get fired or resign.
Take some context here. Okay, so I did a video about this recently. He did recently very publicly cut ties with Marvel because he wasn't invited to the after party for Deadpool and Wolverine, and he felt very slighted. I'm enjoying the pettiness.
Well, it was because he wanted to get a credit in the beginning of Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a huge movie. So he wanted a credit in the movie. He also felt like Kevin Feige was giving him the cold shoulder at the premiere event for the movie. He wasn't invited to the after party. He didn't feel cool. So, yeah, he got burnt, and
I was
now
right. Kennedy co-produced E.T.
Okay.
Her and Spielberg.
He's basically just Twitter fingering it up, and he posted, "Get Feige off the mound. He's spent," in response to the Brave New World domestic box office numbers, which were disappointing. He also said, as shared by Scott Mendelson, MCU is an extended downside. This is beyond a trend. It's become the norm. If this was sports, Feige would be removed. Marvel brand is like Dodgers, Lakers, Yankees, Celtics. Coaches that win championships are removed a year later. Oh, Celtics. When the results are disappointing.
Larry Bird played for the Celtics.
He said, box office analyst Scott Mendelson lays it all out. It's not a secret, and it's beyond a trend. It's the norm now. 8 movies crash over the last 3 years. Don't we want better movies? You get the curiosity crowd, then plunge.
Yeah.
Other than Deadpool and Wolverine, obviously. But the rest of them you could pretty much say are failures.
I feel like there's the possibility that Thunderbolts could have been like the sleeper hit of the year, but that would have only have been if Brave New World had been a really, really good movie, even though they have nothing to do with each other, inherently different creative teams other than the fact that they're both under the Marvel umbrella. But we'll have to wait and see.
It's in the same universe.
Yes. With leftover TV characters that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
They really want Yelena to be a thing. They really want Yelena to be a thing because they want Florence Pugh to be a thing. It's not going to work. I still believe that
she's not a bad actress.
The saddest thing is that the person that got screwed more than anything is Iman Vellani, who's the only likable person in Marvel. Even though everybody hates Miss Marvel, Iman Vellani is an eminently likable young actress.
Xochitl Gomez seems like a nice girl too.
Not in the same
Not
way.
as charismatic.
Not as
but
charismatic.
she seems nice.
There's something eminently likable about Iman Vellani and sticking her with Brie Larson in a movie that nobody was going to watch. Like I almost believe that they would have been better off instead of doing the Miss Marvel series that nobody cared about. But a lot of the people that did watch it said it was fine and said that they enjoyed the family element that was woven into it. I said if they had given her a medium budget 2-hour movie by herself and not immediately after not immediately after Endgame, waited until midway through, they would have been better off because the young actress could have carried it on the charisma of her personality alone and her very, very real and honest love of the franchise. She seems to love Marvel the way that Tom Cruise loves movies in general.
Yeah, it didn't feel like when she was in Captain Marvel, no, not Captain Marvel, the Marvels, doing this like fangirl act for
but
Captain
when she
Marvel,
does it, you believe it.
She was doing that. It didn't feel like it was contrived. It felt real.
They need to.
She was drawing on real enthuseasm.
That would have been good. I would like to see that. She
still has light in her eyes that Brie Larson doesn't have.
Well, she never had that. I mean, she
maybe never had.
She always like the way I always saw that was she always felt like she was above the material.
Maybe. It's just, how are there so many of these people, you know?
They're like she said Sochi correctly. They're like trying to correct you on the pronounce. She said Sochi.
What is it supposed to be? Are they?
No, it is Sochi.
Saying
They're like you pronounced it right. You pronounced it correctly. So, yes. The fact of the matter is both of these franchises are a shell of their former selves. It's really, really funny because I like to cover these things, but nobody cares about the videos because nobody cares about Marvel anymore.
Yeah,
they don't.
Interest has dried up.
It really has. So, all right. But again, do I believe that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving anytime soon? No, not as long as she's got those freak off pictures of Bob Iger somewhere that she probably has.
Maybe she'll leave and Gina Carano will take her place.
Okay.
How about that?
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.